Hey everybody, welcome to episode 6 of the Rawle and Gene Show, The Power of Coaching. I'm Gene, and that's my good friend Rawle over there. Rawle, how are you today?
I'm well, man. I'm basking in the living room today.
Oh, we're trying out different backgrounds for Rawle. What does everybody think about Rawle's background so far?
Yeah, give me some love on the background. I could have been blurred today, but and then there was the brick wall option, but I figured, I'll trust Gene and let's go with the luxury living room.
I do notice that it's actually making your camera a little bit slower. Neil, good morning on YouTube. Thanks for watching and always being a part of the show, brother. We appreciate you. And to everybody else, actually, that's watching, if you're watching live or you're watching one of the replays, thank you for being here today. We're talking about assertiveness today, aren't we, Raul? I'm gonna
Yeah,
be
we are.
assertive with that.
But
We are talking about assertiveness.
I'm taking my background off because you're right. It seems to be slower.
Yeah.
So
Let's just see the real uncut you.
we'll just go back to the authentic, the authentic version. So
And now we've got our podcast uniforms on as well.
Well, last
We've
week you
got
asked me how I was showing up, and I put the T-shirt on, and then I was doing laundry. I go, okay, I gotta wash this because
our
Gene will wear his today. So for you people out in broadcast land, you assume that he came prepared. He didn't. He came with a
No,
different
I did not come
shirt.
prepared, did I? And you called me on it right away. What a friend. What a friend.
I even did laundry, and you didn't even wear the shirt.
Well, at least mine was clean and ready to go.
How you doing? How's the week been?
It's been good. Well, here in Kelowna, the weather's been beautiful, so it's been
Right.
nice to be outside a little bit, and it's been a productive week. Some real good connections with some friends and family, and getting a little bit of work done in between all of that as well.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, as you can see through the cracks of the blinds, it's sunny out. It's probably like 20 degrees outside in Toronto, which is
Nice.
pretty good. Or maybe even warm. It feels warm, but it's been a good week as well. So I'm glad to hear you're having some quality time with other people and also getting some stuff done. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think
How
I
about
was
how about
I
for
think I had
yourself?
a good week. Got
Yeah.
things accomplished and working on a new piece for BC Culture Days, which I used to be a part of when I lived in Kelowna. And so they just announced a new ambassadors program. So I figured, you know what? I don't know if I was the first or one of the first ambassadors. I think I was the first BC ambassador chosen for Culture Days. So I was just so working on that and other things. And yeah,
Nice.
being productive, flowing with the energies of life, man. Flowing.
I think that's
You know,
important to
some days are
recognize.
some days you tend to flow better, but you know, overall, I'm above ground and still feeling juicy. So
Well, then it gives you the opportunities to do all the things. And sometimes those things aren't always what's right and what's the flow. That doesn't always necessarily mean it's easy. That's been a bit of a theme for me this week has been finding, like doing the important things, the hard things, because they're the right things, doesn't necessarily mean that they're the easy things. But
yeah,
damn, getting through them, that feeling it afterwards and just stepping into it it's been pretty amazing just practicing that and thinking and combining that with our topic around being assertive and what does assertiveness mean and how does that show up and what does that feel like for us.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's a interesting topic being a survey. Kind of, excuse me. What did we talk about last week?
That's a good
What did
question.
we talk about last week?
Hang on. Why can't I remember our topic?
I can't. Yeah. Well, because we're in the moment.
We
But
definitely have been.
do you have it?
Hang on, I'm pulling it up here. Oh no, where'd you go? This is this is what happens when we do things live. It doesn't always go.
Yeah, I'm not going to make
Qu-
excuses for it. That's
quite as quickly here.
part of life. This is
What were we talking about? We were talking about doing hard things, weren't we?
yeah. Well, I think the point is once you find it, assertiveness ties into it. Assertiveness ties into
Oh,
us.
that's right. Turning the tides, transforming challenges into self-discovery. So we were
Yeah,
talking about how we were the topics of last week. It was dealing with challenging people, and then we morphed that into just dealing with challenge, period, and what's
yeah,
that like, and how do we face that challenge, and how do we step into that, and then having the choice of who do we want to be
yeah,
when those challenges come up. And we kind of landed in that place of making it a practice, right? Like,
yeah,
it's, I think we've talked about every single one of our episodes so far has shifted us into the conversation of these states not being like an end goal, but being a practice, being a value, or
yeah.
what's a better word for that, like a way of being that you want to show up as. Is like you actually have to go put the reps in and put the work in so that you can be ready for when the time comes for the big game, for that skill to be applied. You can apply it, and you can
And
have
it's
a
a,
little bit of confidence with that.
and it's a continuation of that because assertive. When you talk about being assertive, what does that mean? Assertive doesn't just stand on its own. Assertive is linked,
Yeah.
a lot of times to anger, because something is happening that you're not getting your way or you're not getting what you want. And a lot of times because we're not getting our way or getting what we want, we get frustration.
Yes.
So, and which is linked to anger, of course. And a lot of it, when you ask, well, why aren't you assertive? Why aren't you assertive? Well, first question I have is, do you know what you want?
Right. Oh, I think that's a
Right?
very good place to start, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna own this myself. It's like for a long time, and even up until now, saying what I want, like putting words to it, it's actually
Mhm.
really hard sometimes,
Yeah, it is.
right? And like I would say, even for myself, I'm a very visual person. So like the ideas that I have in my head are all pictures. And
Mhm.
so even from that it's hard to translate it back down. But when somebody says, "What do you want?" more often than not, all of a sudden it's just like a blank canvas going, "Uh-oh."
Yeah. But even if you're visual, you can find visual replications of what you want
Yes.
that can give you an idea of what you may want to write. So I always
Right.
tell people, the first part of being assertive is recognizing, okay, what am I angry at? And is it realistic? Is it
Mm.
is it something that really I don't need to be angry about, to be mad at? And
Well,
if
I
that's
see
the
the
case, then put on your big boy pants and move on.
big person pants.
But if it's
Uh,
something that is of substance, true substance, then it's like, what do you really want? How do you want to be
right.
in this? What do you stand for? Your principles, values, all these things. Write it down so you understand it. Because a lot of times I got a good brain, I got a good memory. But when you're in moments of confrontation, and
That can
yeah,
go all out the
this
door,
tends to
right?
want to leave, and it's like, oh, you're on your own now.
It's
When
like,
things are
oh,
good, it's there and it's telling you all these things, but when you really need it, it wants to run away. So this is why it's important to write it down to understand. You know, it's like if you're
maybe, like we've kind of like we got two things going on here. We've got there's the component of like there's the misconception, and we want to talk about debunking anger with assertiveness. But
mhm,
there's also like that start, which I think is a beautiful place that maybe we can leave some people with some gems today here, is assertiveness starts by owning what you want.
yeah, it starts by owning what you want, being honest with yourself.
Mm. Dig a
You
little
know,
bit deeper there, Raul, because you always have some good insights about like I'm going to point here to your concept of your vault of wisdom
mm-hmm,
is like when there's that assertive, you want to assert yourself means you want to move towards something that you desire,
yeah,
want to experience in the world. So how does someone who's challenged, going, I don't know what I want. I don't know how to put words to what I want, right? Like where I was referencing is like when someone goes, "What do you want?" and it's like this black blank canvas going, like it's like a there's like a fear component of saying of even getting to discovering what it is that you want.
Hmm.
How do you help how do you help get past the blank canvas of going, what the hell is it that I want?
Well, know me. I believe in brutal honesty. So my thing is, a lot of times when you ask someone what they want, they'll go, "Well, I don't know what I want." I go, "That's not true."
Hmm.
And if we talk and keep talking, they will tell me what they want.
Right.
So that says to me, are you afraid to ask for what you want?
Oof.
Not necessarily from someone else. Ask yourself for what you want. Have you asked permission from yourself to say, it's okay. I'm worthy to ask for this. I'm worthy to have this, and not expecting it to be just handed to you, that you'll work towards it. So I think, first of all, a lot of times when people say they don't know what they want, they do know what they want, but they're afraid to ask for it.
Mm.
And, I'll link it to maybe there's a worthiness issue around that you don't want to ask for it. So it always starts with yourself first. Are you honest with yourself in understanding what you want? And then there's knowing what you want, and then developing the courage to ask for it. And this is why I say it's important to write it down. What is it that you want? How do you actually want it? What are you prepared to do for it? If you're asking for something from someone else, can you list the benefits for them? What's the incentive for them to grant you that? It could be something as simple as in a relationship. Your partner says, why don't we go out on dates as often? And he or she will assume that the other person knows that. Well, you should know. No, I don't know. This is what I'm asking you. So do you then have the courage to say, well, you know what? I've noticed that we've kind of slipped on going on dates and making time for ourselves. So I think it's important that we get back into that practice of going on dates, right? And making sure we clear time in our schedule to make time for ourselves, to show that we're important. So can we, maybe once a month, or, maybe every 2 weeks go on a date.
Right.
And then your partner will go, well, we both had busy schedules. How about if we try once a month, right? So there's asking for what you want and then being able to negotiate for it. But in the negotiation is where you set the criteria, you position why it's important to you. And here's what I perceive the benefits will be for you and for me if we were to do this. So this is why, if you write it out and then you actually practice it, because if it's something really important to you, why would you not practice it? Right? It's like a sports team. A sports team doesn't just show up once you have a team on paper. They practice. They go through the toil and the grind to make themselves better, so that when game time comes, they can rely on their practice, now providing that you're practicing good habits. So if you have the good habits done and you've been practicing it, even when the moment comes, you will be nervous. But nerves are not the problem. Is, do you have the courage to then open your mouth and ask for what you want?
Take
and
those steps.
Being assertive is just simply, being concise, outlining what you want. This is how it will serve me, and this is the benefit I think it will return to. You'll get from it.
Assertiveness is a delivery mechanism.
Yes.
Of that, right? So if whatever you're going to put it, I think we talked in one of our other shows we talked about like confidence being like a delivery mechanism as well, right? So there's a power to the assertiveness and what you put in it and how you then send it off to be delivered. However it's received, that's another story.
That's a different story, but it's on
the first
you.
part is accepting, going, for me to take a step forward, I have to assert myself into this situation. Be it insert myself into facing my fear around not being able to understand why I can't answer the question, what is it that you'd want? Fill in the blank situation. Then you have to assert yourself to say, this is what I want to myself. Assert yourself to say, to explore the why behind that and the purpose of it. Assert yourself to write it down, and assert yourself again to bring this forward. There's all these multiple layers that assertiveness shows up into it.
And assertiveness is just another, like you said, it's a delivery mechanism. That's all it is. And in any delivery mechanism, you have to develop it, you have to outline it, and then you have to practice it. And it's no different. And are you practicing it? If say we worked for an organization and there was a sales manager's position coming up, you're my manager, you're my boss, my director, whatever. And I notice that I am not being considered for this position. And it's like, why? Well, have you gone into your manager's office and said and state your intentions of wanting this position, positioning yourself why you think you'd be a good candidate for it? Instead, we do that. We assume that the other person should know. Well, if you look at my performance, well, why do I have to ask? You should be automatically putting me up. There's no automatic in anything because you're assuming your manager's sitting around doing nothing. They've got other things to do as well. And a good manager will notice certain things, but even a good manager, they can miss things as well. So can you just go to your manager? Look, can we have a chat about the sales manager's position? I've developed some frustrations around it because I assume that you should know that I want this, and I want to take the assumption off the table. I want to put my hat in the ring for this position, and this is why I think I'd be a good sales manager, blah, blah, blah. And this is why I think it would benefit the organization if I was in this role, and so forth. I think when you approach it that way, you are being assertive. And it's not just doing it once, it's repetitively doing it. You have to practice it. And the more you do it, the better you'll get with it. A lot of times people assume being assertive means you have to be angry and explode. No, you do not at all. You do not at all. But can you be concise in declaring what it is you want? Here I am asking for what I want. Yeah. And it's not just asking because I deserve it. I'm asking because this is what I have done to say I'm qualified for what I'm asking for. Right. And further to that, I'm going to also outline what I think the benefits would be to you, right? Going back to, a couple wanting to go out on dates on a more regular basis. Well, the benefits is going to be where we'll be more connected. It will improve our communications. It will just improve our overall dealing with each other, our understanding of each other. If we set time for just us, not having to deal with kids or work or anything else. So it's a practice that you have to develop. And like I said, that practice requires, are you taking yourself seriously? And then are you outlining what it is that you say you want, and then practicing it? Practice before the mirror, practice with a friend before you have to address it with the person that it's really meant for.
Right. And so what the visualization I'm having here is like, we talk about assertiveness being a delivery mechanism. I see it as like it's the ship. And in the sails, what's blowing into it are your values. Mm-hmm. So what's moving that assertiveness forward? It can be the compassion, it can be the kindness, it can be boldness, or where we want to debunk a little bit of this is like some, anger. Anger can be in those sails.
Yes, it can.
It can be.
Yes.
But it's not the assertiveness. It's the energy pushing it forward, right? Yeah. And what are you going to do with it, and how are you going to be with that? You're going to make the answer around, is anger the only thing that's in the sails right now that's pushing this ship forward?
Yeah.
What else could be in it? Anger could be in it, but you could also partner with it with gratitude. Anger could be that moment where you're like, no more. I need to now assert myself. And how do I want? It could be the indication that your ship needs to leave the harbor. Yeah. And you need to go deliver this message. You could do that with gratitude. You could do that with kindness, compassion. It doesn't need to be delivered. Assertiveness is not the same thing as anger.
It is not. Assertiveness comes from anger because you have not giving yourself permission to assert yourself into a situation that you want to be in, or you want something, and that you don't have the confidence or the courage to ask for it. Right. It's like, and this is why I said the first practice of assertiveness is, are you asking yourself for what you actually want? Yeah. Are you giving yourself permission to say, you know what? I am worthy of asking for this. And why am I worthy? This is why. Not just because I'm breathing. This is what I have done. This is what I believe. It's going back to the relationship. Why do I believe we need to go on more dates? Is because if we don't do that, we'll become more and more disconnected. We'll become more and more distant. And you hear couples always say that, well, we've grown apart. We've grown differently. Well, we've grown apart because why? Maybe you did not take your relationship seriously and did the work. A lot of times people go, a relationship shouldn't be hard. Why shouldn't it be hard? It's going to be hard at times. It shouldn't be hard all the time. But the heart says, oh, we have work to do. I'm not taking you for granted, but more importantly, I'm not taking myself for granted. So I'm going to insert myself in this situation through wanting respectful dialogue to say, this is what I'm asking for. This is why I'm asking for it. And this is why I believe the benefits will be. Right? Because you look at the word assertiveness, you are inserting yourself. But a lot of times people have a problem with that because they're inserting themselves in a potential conflict, and they have problems with conflict. That we can do a whole show on conflict and add that to the bucket list of shows to do.
We're going to add that right now before
we are afraid of conflict. I mean, look at present day world with what's going on when people have different ideas of what's going on. As opposed to talking respectfully, they just allow anger to rule, especially when they hear things they don't like, or it may not agree with their ideology. Instead of pulling back and going, you know what? I'm not sure I fully understand what it is that you're saying or why you're saying it. Can you help me to say that? Or help me to understand that? A lot of it is just stepping back and going, okay, why is this important to you? But before that person can do that, do you have the courage to ask them in a respectful, engaging way?
Right.
That's not going to come across as attacking and saying it's your fault or, well, you should know kind of thing, right? Why should I know?
There's a component of the responsibility of what is being delivered.
Yeah.
And how you're going about that. If you're being an asshole, you're going to have to own that you're being an asshole. Part of me is like, let's bring back calling out an asshole's an asshole. Like, if you're being that in that moment, that's what's happening. And you can still say what I want without being that asshole.
Yeah.
And it's okay if on the other side that they feel that who's ever receiving that has a challenge and views you being very clear and concise as like a point of conflict, and which we'll get into. But conflict can be a very beautiful thing.
Well, conflict, it is beautiful. It can be beautiful and ugly depending on how you approach it.
Yeah.
Right. What's the old saying? You can attract more flies with honey and vinegar, right? Well, there's truth to that. If if you want something from someone, if you're coming across and attacking them, more than likely they're not going to give you what you want.
Yeah.
Having said that, there are times you need to be an asshole, but you can also still be a good asshole. Asshole is just another word of saying, I'm not going to be agreeable because what I'm asking for and my principles and ethics, which is guiding this, is non-negotiable. I'm not going to sabotage or put to sleep my principles and my ethics.
Right.
So sometimes people go, you're being an asshole. No, I'm standing up for what I believe.
Right.
Right. If you want to take it that way, that's on you. But I am always going to stand up for what I believe. The question is, do you know what you believe? And are you articulating that? Not just articulate, are you walking it? Are you demonstrating it on a regular basis? Right. So, you might be an asshole to this person, but to someone else, they're going, no, that person's just standing up for themselves. And we sometimes struggle when people stand up for themselves. To be honest with you, any sort of assertiveness training I've ever done is usually I've done with women. I'm not saying that I haven't done it with men, but because women tend to be more agreeable. And because they're more agreeable, they'll tend to just accept certain things as opposed to going, no, that's not what I want. Right? This is what I want. And this is why I want it. And this is the benefits to if I get it. And then be able to negotiate that. Right? Sometimes you may get it as it is, and then sometimes you have to do a back and forth. And the back and forth, the conflict is what scares a lot of people off a lot of times, both men and women. So,
well, and bringing that, like you said, part of assert is like that you're inserting your opinion, you're inserting your desire.
Mm-hmm.
And there's when you are capturing that desire or what you're hoping to get for, and you're putting it out to the world, there's almost a response. I don't think responsibility is the right way to phrase that, but there's a component of you are in full control of saying what it is that I desire and how you send that out.
Hmm.
And then what comes back as the response is like you have zero control over what's coming back. You're going to have full control over how you're going to respond to that. So how do you
Absolutely.
assert back into that response? And it's almost like playing a game of tennis. Like,
Exactly.
okay, I got the ball this way. You could spike it hard back. They're going to spike it hard back. Or
Hmm.
maybe they've spiked it at you, but you could lob it back up and change. You could easily change the state of the game on each swing that you
Hmm.
bring to it. That's the control. So how are you going to assert yourself into this communication, into this relationship on the goals of I'm inserting this to improve upon it, going this game, this conflict is
Yeah.
important because we can make something beautiful if we're both playing.
And I think part of it is also accepting that you may not get what you want and
Yes.
being okay with that. Um, just because you ask for it doesn't mean you will get it.
What? Rawle.
No, you may not get it. You have to
I
be
would have
okay
known this
with that.
before.
But to me, if you're not understanding what assertiveness means and how to do it, it affects you. It affects your health. It affects your mental state of mind. It affects your mood. It can affect your mental, your physical being. You know, you take these things on, and then you let it ruminate in your head, right? Because you didn't have the courage to ask for it. And then you start building resentment on people that may not even know what it is that you want.
Oof.
So then you start treating them differently and acting differently on an assumption, which is very dangerous. So if you have the courage to then ask, you also have the courage to accept that you may not get it or you may not get the full amount in this the negotiation. You know, tennis is
Yeah.
a good example of that. Now, whether I lob it or I try to spike it, because everyone, you're trying to win because you're
Yeah.
trying to get what you want, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you will win, sometimes you won't. My thing is, do you have the courage, regardless of what the outcome is, to ask for what you want and be an adult about it and accept I might get it, I might get it in partial, or I may not get it at all. And if, in that negotiation, sometimes you might go, you know what? We've kind of reached a stalemate here. Let's just agree to disagree, maybe walk away. Maybe I'll come back with some other facts and data that might get you to see things differently.
Mm.
Or maybe it's not the right time for uh, the
What you're
right
being
time for
asked
what
for.
you're asking for to provide what you're asking for. And then you can just simply say, well, if not today, when would be a good time? When do you think I'd be qualified for this, or when do you think we can start doing this? Don't just take when they say no. Just really understand what they're really saying, right? So what I'm hearing is you're saying this may not be a good time for the company to promote me. Why? Because, and let them state their case,
Yeah.
right? It's like being in a court of law as well, right? You're positioning arguments. That's all you're doing. You're positioning arguments with facts and data, with substance, not just because I feel so, I want this and I should have it. No,
Yeah.
no one deserves anything. You have to earn it and work for it and certain
Mm-hmm.
things. So, a lot of it is, to be honest with you, Gene, is putting on your big boy pants, man, and being honest and going, okay, what am I at? What am I mad at? Am I mad at that person, or am I really mad at myself because I allowed this situation to boil to this point
Yeah.
because I
There's a
didn't have the courage to ask?
there's a question that I heard just today, which is I think important for our conversation. It's like, what role have I played in this situation?
Always should always ask that
Right?
question.
It's like what be that curious
Hmm.
component of it, right? Like we hear when I hear you talk, we're talking about asserting yourself into the communication. We use tennis as the metaphor here. As that ball's coming back, you use the word understand. It's like as you're pulling the racket back to figure out how you're going to hit that. That's the understanding. The forward motion is the assertion,
Hmm.
is sending it back, right? So understanding, acknowledging, accepting,
Accepting.
these are all very important components of that. Within it,
Hmm.
there's a curiosity of going, what is what is my role in this situation?
And when you, sorry, go
And using the
ahead.
Rawls, get brutally honest with yourself. It's like, get brutally honest with the curiosity of, what is my role in this? Has my role been passive?
Yeah.
Have I allowed assumptions to run wild up here in myself and obviously out there, because I have not taken the steps to articulate to myself what it is I want? So if I can't articulate what I want,
How can you get what you want?
why am I shifting
Hmm.
that responsibility to assert myself to somebody else? It's like basically going, hey, person that I'm in a relationship with, be it work, be it your partner, be it your kids, be it your friends, going, here's all my eggshells. Don't step on them, but
Yeah.
please take good care of them
and
because
and
I
I,
don't want to.
and I antiquate that to being a victim, right? I I don't have the skills or abilities or the know how to do it. You should know how to do it and how to appease what I want.
Mm,
How many times have you asked someone for something that you want after the fact, and the person will go, "Man, if I'd known you wanted that, I would have
oh,
given it to you."
yes.
Right? So we've all had those experiences, and it's as simple as, if you had asked, I would have facilitated, but I didn't know you wanted it.
So I had to fill in the blanks with the
So I had,
information that I had.
exactly. So
Right.
whatever information I have, that's what I went on. Now, that doesn't mean there's some people that still know what you want, and know you've earned it, and they choose not to do it. That's a different story. That
Yeah.
that happens as well. But I've found, for the most part, when I actually ask for what I want, I tend to get it. I may not always get it in full, but I tend to get it.
In some
So
shape or
this,
form.
so this is
Yeah.
why I always put it back on the individual. Are you being honest with yourself in regards to knowing what you want?
Mm,
But before you know what you want, what are your, how do you want to be?
yeah.
What are your guiding principles? Because say they say, what, yeah, you've done this amazing job, but we're still going to give this job to someone else. Then you're not forced, but you have a choice. And if your ethics says, what, if you're not going to value me, I'm going to value me, then you know what your choice is. You know what, then maybe it's time for us to part ways. If you're not going to fully value what I bring to this organization, I value what I bring to this organization. I value what I bring to this relationship. So it's about being honest, and then knowing how to ask, and knowing how to negotiate, and knowing how to accept.
Mm.
Because it's not always going to go your way, but it goes your way a lot of times if you do ask. If you
If you
do
take,
ask.
if you're willing to take the step and you're
If
willing
you're
to
willing to take,
explore with that.
and not just doing it once, repetitive with it. It's something you have to practice. You have to practice it. You have to practice your languaging, how you want to say it. You have to practice what it is you want to ask for, how to ask for it. It's like in our workshop that's coming up, to me, I don't see. We've been promoting and stuff, and the email I created, and what's the first thing I said? The ask. This is the ask. I'm asking you to do this.
Yeah.
And if you did this, here are the potential benefits to it. Now it's up to you.
As well, that link is just showing up in the comments wherever you are viewing us today. Make sure to hit those comments up and click that link. 3 simple steps. Grab your assessment, sign up, and get ready for the workshops that are coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting some momentum on it. I have a friend of mine out of state. She's going to be doing it. Some of the other people I talked to, they're going to be signing up, I think, this week coming up. So, yeah, things are starting to percolate.
Yes.
With regards to that. And to be honest with you, a lot of it is because I'm having conversations with them and I'm asking them.
And I was just about to say, it ties back to building the business of Peel Back and building, our offerings together. Is like, well, at first we had to assert that this is something we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
We had conversations around how we want to structure our offerings, how we're going to be in partnership in this, and then take some bold steps in asserting it by putting it out to the world.
Yep.
It started this podcast, and now we're also, I think that's going to put us up to, by the end of this week, over 10 people signed up for the me I don't see
Yeah.
workshop and experiences. Like
Yeah.
that would have never happened if we just sat around and waited for somebody to come fill in those blanks for us, saying, what do we want? We want to help people. We want to be the coaches that we are. And to do that actually means we have to build the business of doing this too.
Yeah. It's just, being courageous with yourself, getting out of your own way to really go, okay, I am worthy to ask for this. Right? This is why I always talk about the vault of wisdom. Your vault of wisdom is your past.
Yeah.
And your past experiences, and wisdom is attached to them. Wisdom is not something that lives in the future or even lives in the now. It's attached to the experiences that we had, the silver lining on the dark cloud kind of thing. Are you ready to be brutally honest with your past and to accept things that have happened? Because if you can accept it, then you can let go and learn how to let go of the suffering of it, so you can see the wisdom of it. And I'm sure to our listeners and myself, I have multitudes of experiences where I was afraid to ask, right? Sometimes for the simplest little things. And then when you ask for it, you get it and you go, oh, why the hell was I stressing myself about this? Why the heck didn't I ask before? And then we beat ourselves up as opposed to, there's the lesson, there's the wisdom. Next time I will ask. I will find the courage within to ask. And that courage within to ask is your values and your principles, right? How do you truly govern your life? How do you truly walk this walk, right? I know one of my top philosophies, I know I am worthy for the things that I truly want, and that I have the aptitude and the skills to deliver on, right? I'm not going to come to you, Gene, and say, hey, I'm going to go join the pro golf circuit when I don't practice and I don't have the aptitude for it, right? So me asking to join that is stupid. That's pointless, right? But in regards to doing a workshop where we believe we can help other people help themselves, I'm going to ask you if you are willing to participate in that. And I'm willing to accept yes or no. I've had a couple of people say, not right now. I don't want to do anything during the summer, but let me know in the fall. I'd go, okay, put your name down for future contact, right? I've developed, that practice of not being afraid to ask. Doesn't mean I'm not afraid, or that fear is still there. I just don't give in to the fear.
You learn from it, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
That whole idea of, I think where fear here speaks really loudly is when you don't know what your ask is, or you haven't gotten right with what that ask is, because then that's really fearful, right? You're like, I'm about to step out and I have no idea what's about to come out of my mouth, nor what my intentions are, or even what I'm trying to ask for. And I'm hoping maybe somebody will save me along the way. Be like, the reality is, like, no one's coming to save you. You have to save yourself here, right? So if the fear is, at a very high level, screaming at you, well, if you look at it from another perspective, what the fear is going, hey, be really clear about what you're asking, because, like, danger's here. Like, what if you spill something out there and that's not what you want, and somebody takes and runs with that?
Yeah.
Like, fear can be your friend. Fear is like the troll standing at the bridge going, if you pass me, you get to be on the bridge.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that you're ready to go onto that bridge.
Everything is a tool for you to use. When I work with my clients, I always tell them, when you have anxieties, replace the word anxiety with crisis. Because every crisis is an opportunity. Every anxiety that shows up, there's an opportunity. It's not actually showing up to hurt you. It's actually showing up to go, are you going to put into steps the things that you can overcome the anxiety?
Right.
Because a lot of people, say like you're asking for patience. Well, how is the universe going to show up with patience for you? To teach you patience, because that's what you want. Yeah. Teach me how to be patient. Well, more than likely, the universe will put you in your car on the highway, in the fast lane, behind another car that's going less than the speed limit. Yeah. Now you're faced with a choice. You can sit there. Most people will sit behind the car, flash their lights, try to get their attention. That's not working, right? Let's assume it's an older couple or older person driving, and they're just
I
driving,
like
and
how
they're
you've
just,
instantly hunched
yeah,
underneath that wheel.
and they're completely just focused on going straight ahead. And then, so they're not seeing you flashing your lights. They're not seeing you tailgating them. And then what do? You move into the middle lane, and then you drive up to come into equal eyesight with them. And then you look over and you go, but you just asked the universe to teach you patience. So patience would be, I'm going to sit back here behind this car. And maybe it's an invitation for me to just be fully focused and be in the moment. Patience.
Yes. And
Right?
again, like everything else, patience and all is a practice.
Yeah. And it's learning how to use everything to your advantage. So fear, Jerry Rice is arguably the greatest receiver that ever played American professional football. And he talked about all that, when he's in practice, or, people see him on certain game films, they go, you don't look that fast. But in the game, he rarely ever got caught from behind. He goes, why? Those guys are hurt. They're trying to hurt me. So I was afraid. I was running for my life. He learned how to use fear in the moment to even increase his speed.
Right.
But it wasn't just that. I mean, he used fear, but he also used fear with his training, his conditioning, his speed work, and his route running, and all these things. So you will play the way you tend to practice.
Yeah.
And if your practice is that I'm afraid to ask for what I want, that's what you're going to end up doing. And that's just going to build frustration within you. And it, more times than not, does not come out in a very holistic way. And then you tend to want to blame other people when the one in the mirror is the one denying the one in the mirror what it is that they really want.
Yeah. I love that, man.
So the first practice of assertiveness is to be assertive with yourself. Right? Understand what that means. Understand assertive is just really asking for what you want based on your principles and values, and then having the courage to do so.
Yes. Practice asking the person in the mirror what it is that you want.
So that's why I was right. If I'm wanting to, I'll put, the ask. Okay, what is it that I really want to ask? I'll write it out and then go, okay, how can I be more concise with what I just asked for? And be concise with it, really work on it and work on the wording. And then what you want, how it benefits you, how it benefits the other person. You gotta remember, people will give you what you ask for, but they'll give it to you if they feel the incentive is worthwhile doing so. Right? We don't tend to do things unless it's an incentive for us. People think that
incentive can be survival or thriving. Those are the two states, right?
It could be anything. But most people, that's how you operate. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So having the courage to ask, outlining how this is going to benefit you and what the benefit is to you as a group, and then accepting what comes from that.
Yes.
But again, you need to practice that with yourself first. Hi, my niece just came home from school.
Ooh.
I'm doing a show. Sorry? Well, there's between myself and my co-host Gene, and then there's other people watching right now. So we're live right now. So go away.
She's part of the live stream.
Part of the live stream, yeah.
Well, it's also looking at the clock. We're at the 45-minute mark. It's
what?
Time flies by when we're having fun. When we're asserting ourselves, Rawle.
We need to move this show to 2 hours. It's too. It just It just goes too fast, Gene.
It does go too fast. What's your final words on assertiveness that people can take away today, Rawle?
I for me, it's like anything else. Love yourself enough, respect yourself enough to ask for what it is that you want. Respect yourself enough to really be honest with yourself to go, what it is that I want, and not be afraid to do that. Like I said, it comes down to yourself. I always use the human heart as an example. When the human heart is feeding the body fresh oxygenated blood, it doesn't send the first blast to the brain or even the lungs. It keeps that first piece for itself because it knows it needs to be healthy and strong to pump blood to the rest of the body. Then it sends it out. We are taught to send it all out and hope some comes back. Yeah. And that's where a lot of frustrations are problems. So kind of operate like the human heart. Really understand who you are, what you want, and then have the courage to ask for it.
Right. I think that's a great place to leave. Right before, so last week, now quick transition. Last week we started reading some pieces that we worked on when we were talking about the difficulty. So we've decided to call this section where we wrap up exposed. Exposed. So this is an opportunity for Rawle to share some of his poetry and what I guess my ramblings, my writings. What did you call it last week? A prose?
So why is mine poetry and yours just ramblings?
Because it's all about self-sabotage sometimes.
All right. No, that works. You want me to go first?
Sure. Well,
I have a short one. I think you went first last time.
I did, yeah.
Here's a poem that's called Oasis. No longer searching, looking for the path to knowing thyself. On the backside of a reflection, the adventure continues. Beyond the image in the mirror, to love me from the inside out, as I dance with the naked truth. I am not an idea, but the imagination of one breath, an inhale of divinity as my pen floods my heart with rainbow ink into the forest. Deserted minds exhale false pride, soul redeemed by the sacred water in the tranquility of an oasis morning. So that piece kind of actually ties into what we were just talking about, right? So, I thought you left, but I keep forgetting you spotlight me every time.
We got to put that spotlight on it when it's appropriate.
All right.
Rawle, that was awesome.
Thank you. I don't think I've read that poem out loud before, so. Yeah.
Well, thanks for birthing it into the world with us today.
Well, I kind of like this little segment that we've included, and it's a way for me to share poetry. I'm not doing as many of the Zoom poetry shows these days, so I'm just looking for other ways to share. So this is a good way to do that. So,
thanks, brother.
Your turn, Buckaroo.
Oh, okay. All right, fine. I'll assert myself here. I thought I could get out of it. So for me, what I do is I take our topic and do freestyle, kind of like journaling around it. And so that's my approach to it. Rawle calls it poetry or prose, but it's just an open flow from me to my pen. So here we go. Assert. A word that is meant to take me forward, yet stops me in my tracks. Assert what? Assert how? Assert where? To assert, my voice must be heard, and to be heard can lead to being seen. So why isn't the voice is a whisper, barely there in my ear? If it can't assert itself here, how can I dare to do it out there? But what if I dare to assert my focus on the whisper within? What would I learn? Like going to the gym for the first time, it feels weird. The other voices doing their best Adam Sandler impersonation. They're all going to laugh at you. And the voice whispers back, fuck that. They can laugh if they want. Assertive is in nature, that statement felt. I assert my focus on the whisper only to hear it more clearly with each practice and rep. Assertive is a practice. It is not an end state. Assertive is a kindness to that voice that says, this is right for you, and it doesn't mean it's easy. Assertive is the champion of asking for what you want of yourself and igniting the boldness to act, to own, to be accountable to yourself. Assert is the soul's opportunity to sweat. So sweat daily and frequently. That's it.
You say you're not a poet, eh?
maybe I
Add
didn't.
this to
Maybe I
add
didn't
this.
know it.
You're a poet and you didn't know it. Add this to the list of future shows: poetry and business.
Yes, business is like poetry.
Well, poetry is everything. It is in everything. It's not just in English literature. Poetry is in business. Rhythm and flow,
Yeah.
right? Rhythm and flow, and we use and we use metaphors to highlight certain things so people can understand in a different way. And business is no different. So, I would love for us to, once we've kind of mastered where we want to be with the me I don't see, is to maybe do workshops around poetry and business and why it's important, especially in today's day and age. So, I keep telling
maybe
you,
we've already created the name for it, rhythm and flow.
rhythm and flow. Well, yeah. I used to do a program in Kelowna called Poetry and Light, where I went into the schools and I used poetry as a mechanism to talk about social justice issues and those sort of things. And, have the kids do a collaborative poem, pick a topic that they decide on, and then they have to write a poem, a collective piece, and then they all have to perform it. And, you always hear the initial groanings, oh, but then once they really immerse themselves in it, they have a blast doing it.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to do something like that in the business world as well, because I think like I said, poetry is in everything. Poetry is in science. It's in mathematics. It's in English. It's in if I stand outside and watch the guys that are picking up the garbage, there's a rhythm and flow to what they do and how they practice what they're doing. So it's no different. So I keep encouraging you to keep writing and stop positioning that you're not this. And,
well,
that may have been a journal entry, but if the way you read it, it sounded like a good piece.
Thanks, Rawle. I appreciate that.
I'm encouraging you to show up to my monthly recital and share.
So this is why we call it the exposed part. We're exposing. We just get to be exposed a little bit.
Yeah, but it's a practice, isn't it?
It is definitely a practice.
Last week was your first.
Yeah.
Today was your second. You seemed a little bit more easier. As soon as you knew it was your turn, I could see the shy little boy and you come across on your face. But that's okay.
Yeah.
You didn't let that stop you.
I asserted myself today.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the key. These low vibing energies, whatever you want to call them, are going to show up. But are you going to let them stop you from what you believe is important for you? You have already agreed, not with me, to yourself. This is an important segment. And that you get enjoyment from actually doing it. And you get enjoyment from actually writing it and challenging yourself to get out of the perception that I'm not a good writer. You're a good writer in business, but I'm not a good creative writer. That's a lie.
Apparently not.
So for those that are listening that heard what Gene said, let him know what you think, because I thought that was a really good piece and you put me to shame. No, I no. There's no competition, because I like my Oasis piece. Actually,
I thought it was beautiful, and
I actually won a certificate for it when I posted it. I don't post a lot of my poetry online anymore. I don't post like a lot of other people. I kind of choose when I do it.
Yeah.
But I did post that probably a couple of months ago, and I got a notification that I was selected Poet of the Week for a group that I was in because of that poem. So I don't care about those things, but for me, I know it's a good piece. That's what counts. What you just wrote, I hope you know that's a really good piece. Same with the piece last week. So my encouragement to you is to keep inserting yourself into the creative flow.
It's the I want to leave it here. Is like it's the expression, right? It's like dare to express yourself.
Yeah, and I really don't care if people like my poetry or not. I want them to. I'm human like I want people to appreciate my poetry, but they don't have to.
No.
And I don't write it for that reason. So if they like it,
perfect.
If they don't like it,
it's still a thumbs up and great one way or the other.
I'm gonna just keep writing, right? And I'm gonna share when the opportunity presents itself, or when the opportunity fits my, again, my principle, my
Yeah.
values. So, well done.
Thank you, brother.
Well done.
As well for you.
Thank you.
And for everybody else that's been watching, to the people that have stuck around for the whole 55 minutes, we love you, and it's great. And we'd still be doing this if you weren't here, either way. So we live by our practice of showing up for ourselves, because at the end of the day, it's just an excuse for us to spend an hour together, which is some
Yeah,
of our favorite times of the week. So,
that's actually what it
Rawle,
is.
brother, much love, gratitude. Thank you for being part of another great show talking about assertiveness. And I look forward to what we're going to come up with for episode number 7 of the Rawle and Gene Show. And
So
we'll be
am I.
back here next week. Same bat place, same bat
I have
time.
no idea what comes up until he tells me. But I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
I feel there's a conflict in our near future.
Well, we need to negotiate this. I need a little bit more prep time. So maybe if you could tell me, I don't know, 24 hours. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, but that was actually a little example of what we just talked about. Anyways. Have a
All
great
right, my friend,
weekend.
and to everybody else, thank you for watching. Make sure to follow and subscribe us on LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you may be watching or listening to our show. Thank you, and we will talk to you next week.
Peel it back, baby.
Ooh, and now for the legal language. Oh, one last thing. It's the legal language. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals.